Hi, everybody. Welcome back to C60 Energy. And hi, Daryl. How are you today?
Hey, Lindy, looking good.
You too. You too, honey. So today we're going to talk about, so we kind of ended last session with how all C60, when Martha tried it, not only one brand helped her pain. And so that really fascinated you and Marshall, and so you jumped into the thick of it. What happened next?
I tell you, here I am. I'm hearing these things about Martha. As everybody who has pain knows, the difference between not having pain and having pain is huge. All right. So I
Right.
was observing this. I mean, Martha was waiting for a hip surgery, and all of a sudden she's taking this C60. She's going to physical therapy. The pain that was keeping her awake at night was gone. All right. Marshall said his pain he went away immediately. Our friend Jeff said that the pain that he had from a congenital hip problem when he was a kid had returned and it was gone. So that was stunning. Stunning. All
I
right.
can imagine.
And the friend who turned it on to Marshall, I only found out later he had very painful. He had ripped his shoulder. He had fallen off a bike. He had a biking accident, and the C60 eliminated his pain. We only found out about that later. But so here I am hearing about these things, and no pain myself, but I'm fascinated. All right, fascinated.
Well, let me jump in here because Martha was trying different C60s. It was kind of pricey, so she was trying to find different C60s that
The
would
same
eliminate the
effect.
pain as well.
Yes. What we found out was the brand that Marshall had sent Martha was the most expensive C60 on the market. This is 2.5 years ago, and if you go up to Google C60 now, you go up to Amazon. I mean, there are pages of C60 products. When we 2.5 years ago, when we started looking at this in January of 2018, there were only 4 or 5 major suppliers of C60, and one of them wasn't us. All right, I mean we were users, okay,
Right.
and there were around 4 or 5 products that were out there, and I noticed immediately that the product that Martha and Marshall were using was the most expensive out there, one of the most expensive out there at the time. All right. And so what happened was that two things happened. Is that I began looking around for the different products to see what else, because I wanted to see if we were just paying a lot for a C60, there would be no reason to not buy a cheaper product. And so that, in fact, is sort of what happened. Is that the major product out there was from a company called SES. All right, and there was a reason why they were the major product out there at the time. Because there was a study done called the Body Rat Study that put C60 on the map. I mean, if you had Googled C60 in 2010, you would have found a bunch of research papers. That's what you would have found. Research papers on this new product called of new topic molecules called fluorines, named after Buckminster Fuller, but you would not have found any C60 that anybody was taking themselves. What put C60 on the map, and this is what I discovered very quickly, was something called the Body Rat Study. And how this came into being was a group, because I started talking about it in our last little talk. That's
And spell that for us, Daryl, so people can go out into Google and look at it.
it's BAATI. If you
Okay.
Google Body Rat Study, BAATI, you're going to find it, and it was fascinating because what had happened is that a group of researchers in Paris, around 4 or 5 of them, who had been looking at C60 probably for 10 years, so they were not novices in this field. They realized that nobody had done a toxicity study on it. All right, and that's sort of normal when you're in organic chemistry, is to find out how dangerous this is and blah 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 blah. All right, and so they did. And what I found out by reading it, this is why all of a sudden, in the last 2.5 years, you Google C60 and you're going to find a ton of products. But it all came from the Body Rat Study. This group of researchers in Paris, to determine the toxicity of C60, decided to give as much C60 as they could to rats to find out what amount would kill them. So what they did was this. Now, this is very sort of technical, Linda, but it really isn't, but it explains something fundamental about C60. C60 does not dissolve in water, okay? It's hydrophilic, all right? But it does dissolve in oil. So what they did was they put as much C60 in the olive oil. They used olive oil, extra virgin olive oil, before they loaded up the oil with as much C60 as they could before it started precipitating out. All right, and so the amount they achieved that was 80 micrograms of pure C60 suspended in 100 milliliters of olive oil. Okay. Because when you started approaching 100 micrograms, the C60 exceeded the solubility product constant, KSP, and the C60 would start precipitating out. They wanted to keep the C60 in solution so they would give it to the rats and the rats would die. All right? And they also knew that most C60 clustered. They're not at all clustered. C60 is electronically sensitive, so it would clump together. So what they did, so in the body rat study, they said they stirred it magnetically for 2 weeks to maximize what they call its effectiveness. Well, which meant they figured out the more effective it was, the sooner the rats would die, the less it would take. All right, because this was a study for morbidity. All right, mortality. Right. So they did. They gave it to. They had control groups. They took these Worcester rats. One they gave just water to, in addition to the C60. The other ones they gave olive oil, and the third group they gave C60 with olive oil. Well, in the body rat study, they gave it to them every day for a week. They figured they'd start dying. They gave as much C60 as they could as it would stay in solution. Well, after a week, Linda, no rats died. They didn't expect the rats given water to die, and they didn't expect the rats given C60, the olive oil to die, but they certainly expected the rats that they gave C60 to every day would start dying. None of them died after a week. So this shocked them, all right? So they had to start changing the protocol. So they decided, well, let's give it to them. We've given it to them every day. Let's give them to them once a week, because they knew they figured it built up or something. So for the next 7 weeks, they gave the rats C60 once a week, or they gave them a dose once a week rather than once a day. Well, this is now 2 months. No rats had died. All right. So they looked at it and they had to change their approach, and they said, okay, we'll give it to them every 2 weeks, one time. All right. So they did. So at the end of 7 weeks in the body rat study, none of the rats had died. And this was a study trying to determine mortality, morbidity. All right?
Well, and these were middle-aged rats, as I recall, and they were have like a 25-month life expectancy anyway.
Yeah. They weren't spring chickens, but they weren't old. But they gave gave it to them. They young Worcester rats. All right. So after giving the rats only 24 doses of C60 over 7 months, they just let the rats live or wait till they died. This is what shocked them, Linda. They were trying to find out how much C60 would kill the rats. Well, the rats that died first were the control group. The normal rats, the rats just given water, along with their food, all right? And they died between 24 and 36 months, which is exactly the normal lifespan, I think, of Worcester rats. And they dissected them when they died, because that's what you do when you're doing laboratory experiments. And they were shocked. What Worcester rats usually die of, no, not here. They died after 24. They weren't shocked. They had died. They had pneumonia and tumors. Okay, this is what they usually die of, so they weren't shocked. The rats they had given olive oil to, and olive oil and C60 were all living. So, what they found sort of next surprised them. The rats that died next were the rats given olive oil, and they lived 19% longer, just because they were given extra virgin olive oil, which they knew was an antioxidant from studies. These rats lived 19% longer. But when they died, the rats that they had been given C60 to were still living. These rats that they'd given C60 to lived 90% longer. And then they died, at the last one I think died 59 months, all right? And when they published a study in 2012, the internet, in a very select group of people, lit up, because the effect on them was, when I found this out in probably February of 2018, I was shocked, Linda. I was as shocked as the early adapters were in 2012 when they heard that news. This looked like the fountain of youth.
Well, I knew it lit you up. It lit you and Marshall up, and Martha, and you guys were bound and determined to find out why this worked for Martha, the pain effect. Again, a lot of other benefits, but and I'm lost here, and I don't know what happened, but you guys end up building a team, rather, an incredible team.
Yeah.
And I want to hear more about that. But again, we don't want to think, you want to say any more about the study? Because there was a lot into that study, I know.
It was the body rat study, and that was the reason why somebody had made up, because the product we took was not from SES. I want to say that I'm sort of rewinding history. I believe that what happened is when the body rat study got published, all right, and they published that they got the C60 from SES laboratories in Houston, all right, which was producing C60 for all the laboratories around the world, or companies that were trying to experiment with this to see what it would do. Mm-hmm. They started getting phone calls. I mean, they started getting phone calls from people saying they wanted this stuff. All right.
Sure.
So exactly. I mean, they wanted this stuff that.
The fountain of youth.
Yeah. The rats live longer. They didn't die. I want some too. All right. So when Marshall was given that bottle of C60, this was 6 years after the study was published, 2018. All right. The study was published in 2012, and in the interim, not only had SES started producing C60 in accordance with what they had done exactly with the body rat study, there were other companies that were coming in doing the same thing, and they were all trying to copy the body rat study. All right.
And they all put their C60 in olive oil and marketed it.
Same
and
thing.
Hope for the best.
Hope for the best, except one company. And the one company produced, they didn't put theirs in olive oil, they put theirs in sunflower oil. And this was the product that Marshall had been given, that he sent to Martha, that we recommended our friend, that stopped the pain.
Well, I'm gonna stop you here, because I want to hear more about that next step and how that fabulous team you have came together. So again, thanks for joining us, everybody. If you feel like C60 may be a benefit to you, we are giving you a 50% discount. Just hit the link below, and have a wonderful week, and we'll see you next time. Thanks, Daryl.
Thanks, Linda.
Bye-bye then.